Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amanda Sutcliffe-Jones. I am the Director of Communications for Community Services Associates. I welcome you to our 2 p.m. meeting for the Community Survey Results presentation. I appreciate your attendance. We have a good number of property owners in the room today. We are also running this meeting via webinar, so that's what you saw me doing over there. I'll be popping back over to take care of the folks on the webinar as well. We had 89 people sign up for webinars, so we're glad that they could participate wherever they are via phone and or by seeing the slides that we're seeing in real time on their computer screens, desktops, and or mobile phones. So, in late March of 2018, CSA conducted a community-wide survey. We contracted the services of University of South Carolina, Beaufort to assist us in facilitating the survey to our property owners. The goal of the survey was to collect community feedback on a variety of topics. The feedback provided from our property owners will be used for CSA staff, CSA committees, and CSA board to use to continue to plan for our community in the future. Today, we're joined by Anton Abraham from the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. Anton and I work closely with CSA staff, CSA committees, and CSA board to put together a survey that we needed your feedback on, and that's what Anton will be presenting the results of today. There were 60 questions asked on the survey, like I mentioned, related to several different topics. And CSA will be making the presentation results available on our website and to our emails through our Facebook page, website, and via our constant contact email service. My request to you today is to listen to Anton as he makes his presentation. It's a lot of information to cover, so again, like I mentioned, we will be posting it publicly for you to review. I encourage you to take a time to go back after the meeting is held to review the results that are presented. We are filming this meeting as well, so you can see the camera in the back of the room. That meeting will actually have the visual aspect of it, not just the slides, but that way you can see the presenters and see as we walk through the presentation material. So I ask that you take your time to read it, to go back through it, and to email us if you have questions or come into CSA. You can reach us by email at info@csacpines.com if you have questions following the meeting. At this point, I'd like to welcome Anton Abraham to the podium, and Anton will walk us through the survey results presentation. Anton. Thank you, Anton. You're welcome.
Hello, I hope you can hear me. Thanks for allowing to speak today to you guys. When I was first invited to come to speak to you, it was said it was about 30 people. Here I am, standing in front of a few more. I'm trying to suppress my charming German accent as much as possible. However, I may not succeed all the time, so bear with me, please. And here is the first slide. I guess the computer is blocked by some cables there. Maybe you want to try to move some boxes because it's Bluetooth there. That might help. There you go. All right, so let's see if we can do this. As Amanda mentioned, the survey was online between March and the beginning of April of this year. It was an online survey. It was not a paper survey, but everybody registered in the CPINE CSA registry was able to participate in this survey. We invited everybody per email. For those who did not get the email invitation, were able to take the survey in the CPINE center. in the CPINE CSA offices. Perfect. Thank you. What I'm going to present to you today is the cumulative percentages. It's not going to be any analysis. We didn't do any factor analysis or further drilling down into the data. It's the pure percentages of how you responded to this survey. Then please click maybe the next one. All right, so, maybe the one after. So who are we? We are from LRITI, that's the Low Country Tourism, Tourism Institute at the University of South Carolina. My boss, John Salazar, is also in the room, and we have been contracted by CPINE CSA to conduct this survey. We are a vendor under contract for CSA, and in this position we have signed a confidentiality agreement. So all the results and all the data we are presenting to you is just under our house. The data collected is owned by CSA, but we are the ones managing the access. So we are not going to present to CSA, for example, how Deborah Miller and Peter Johnson and Club Course Drive responded individually. We're just going to present cumulative data in reports like the ones I'm presenting to you today. The data is stored now on USB servers in order to be able to run additional analysis from the request for CSA. And this can be like how specific group of residents reacted to the survey, how specific age groups, for example, reacted to specific questions, etc. All right, so I guess, Amanda, if you could, the next slide. Yes. Yes, there we go. All right, perfect. So we sent out 6,874 email invitations. We monitored those invitations, and we had, after this 2 weeks period, we had 2,649 completed responses. This translates to a response rate of 38.5%. That's phenomenal. When John and I do this kind of surveys, we usually don't have a 38.5% rate. So you guys are great. You're doing a good job. So this translates to roughly 2,332 households or properties, properties reached, individual properties reached, because you may know that some of you per household got 2 email invitations, you and your wife or you and your partner got the email invitation. So individually properties reached, it's about 2,332. Thank you. The next one here, that's question 1. That's basically what all of you know or should remember from the survey. What's the estimated value of your property in Sea Pines? So when LRITI is conducted at USCB to conduct this kind of research, it's usually one focus and one focus only. It's about to maintain the property value. And that's usually a sentiment. How happy are residents in a community? And that's why we conduct this exercise in collaboration with CSA to find out how do you feel, how happy are you in this community about amenities, how happy are you about your general quality of life, because you want to maintain or even in the best case scenario increase your property value. So this is how did you estimate your own value of your property. And as you can see, it's about a quarter who say it's about less than $500,000. The majority is in the second category of 500,000 to 1 million with 42.4%. And another quarter is with more than $1 million. All right, question 2. Here we ask about how long have you been a resident in Sea Pines? And this is typical for Sea Pines. It's about a quarter of those who are just here since 5 years or less. Yet again, that's a very typical and common result to find. And then the biggest chunk, of course, is 20 years and longer, followed by 10 years, between 10 and 20 years. All right. Next question, we ask if this is your primary residence, or if this is your secondary residence, or how else you use this property in Sea Pines. And it's a 42% primary residence. That's quite atypical for communities, not atypical for Hilton Head Island, with the amount of 44.4% in secondary residences. We all know this is a destination with a lot of secondary residences. So here again, it's normal for this area. We asked you how long you were typically staying or residing in Sea Pines. Question 4, and 44% of you responded with all year around. Except from that, you can see a dip in the summer months. So people are not spending typically so much time in those months in Sea Pines, and that's of course probably explained with you fleeing from the tourists, people, aren't you? There you go. Again, rather typical. Now, before we continue the slides, I have here kind of an explanation slide about what a weighted average in the top 2 boxes, because we're going to encounter this in the next slides. For those of you with business background, I don't have to explain this to you. For those who don't remember, it's as detailed. Here we are. The weighted averages is when we have a rating scale, like on the bottom, like on the image below. To each value, to each response, a value is assigned. So let's say we assign to strongly disagree a 1 and to strongly agree a 5. It's a 5-point rating scale. We assign these numbers to it, and then we this assigned value we create a weighted average, and that's, for example, done in the way that if person A selects strongly agree with a 5, person B selects strongly disagree with 1, C with 3, neutral, and person D with strongly agree again a 5. You can see the formula there on the right side. The weighted average is 5 plus 1 plus 3 plus 5 divided by the amount of responses, in this case 4, so the weighted average is 3.5. The top 2 box below that is, as you can see here in the red boxes, it's the top 2 boxes combined, but it's just the top 2 percentages combined, okay? Both of those things, the weighted average and the top 2 boxes, help us or help you if you don't have too much time to actually get into the nitty-gritty of reports, of big reports like this. Like Amanda said, it's 60 questions. We can't go into the detail of every single questions, but the top 2 boxes and the weighted average helps you to point out where's something interesting, and then you go into the nitty-gritty, then you look at the details there. All right, so this is basically just a tool to help you read the report faster. All right, that's the one I was talking about, the big one, and this is question 5, where we asked how important the following community features were for you when you purchased your property in Sea Pines. And not surprising at all is the access to the beach with a very high weighted average. That's the red column on the right side, with 4.7, as well as the natural environment and the natural beauty. This is what my boss and I always find when we do these kind of surveys. That's what draws people here. Golf is a bit more surprising for you. It's further down the line with a weighted average of 3.55. So it is important, it's still an issue, but maybe not as much anymore. And on the very bottom, we have the private country club option. And there it is quite interesting that the weighted average is below with 2.56. That's how important it was when you originally decided to purchase in here. All right. The next question is, what are the biggest competitors to Sea Pines? Where else did you check before you decided to move into Sea Pines? And this is a word search. So that's why this is rather generic. There's communities I specifically looked for and how often they came up. And we have here permitted dunes with 306 times, which was mentioned, which translates to 50.1%. I'm sorry, this slide just changed a minute ago. So it's 15.1% with permitted dunes, and then it goes down. But like I said, it's a word search, so sometimes it was just Florida generically mentioned, but we don't know where in Florida. That's where we would have to go into the detailed results to see what else was mentioned there, okay? So that's basically the interesting, not just for CSA, but also for the resort, like where are the biggest competitors out there? Question 7. Did you or your members of your household vacation in Sea Pines before you were buying your property in this community? And 87% said yes, you did. And there we have the problem with the tourists. As annoying as they are very important, especially to your property value, because most of you were tourists before you decided to buy here. And that's what John and I find there too as well, is usually you visit between 5 and 8 times before you decide to move down here. So, but of course, with all that tourism and that growth, there's the challenges coming with housing. We know about this, traffic, prices, etc., etc. But it is important for your property value. There you go. Next slide is. Yes, please. Next one. Is what type of property do you originally purchase in Sea Pines? With a follow-up question, what type of property do you own now? Okay, and I have a very nice slide comparing those two, where you can see that single family homes increased, of course, the lots decreased, and that's what CSA likes to see. You know, that's what you came into. What stays kind of similar is the townhome inventory, but also timeshare. That's in quite common, apparently a quite common movement from you move in a timeshare and then you decide to move into your single family home here. All right. Before we asked in question 5, what made you choose Sea Pines, what amenities made you choose to come here or decide to come here, and now we ask in question 10, what outdoor amenities are you actually using? What are you utilizing? Because there's a difference between what you want and what you actually use. We find that also very often, and here we are. So beach, of course, is very popular, as well as the biking, hiking, and leisure trails on the top with a weighted average of 4.23. But yet again, it's a frequency. So this is, the weighted average helps you to point in the right direction, but it's a frequency where we talk about a couple of times a year towards weekly or daily. All right. Thank you. The follow-up question, question 11, is how would you rate each of the following in regards to the biking, hiking, leisure trails of Sea Pines? This is from a rating scale to very poor to excellent. And as you can see here, lighting is an issue on the last spot with 2.94 as a weighted average, or just 30% as a top to box. So that is something CSA is going to use. They are going to address these kind of issues because they're pretty sure they can do better there. On the other hand, the accessibility is not the biggest problem there. It's a high weighted average as well as a high top to box. All right, the follow-up question was, how do you typically use the forest preserve? And we provided options there. So it's hiking and walking. I guess that's lots of dog walking going on there. Obviously biking, bird watching, other special events, followed by fishing, picnics, etc. And this is a select all that apply box. So what you will see here is that the percentages never add up to 100% because you were able to select all the options you wanted to. Okay, so that's usually percentages add up to 100, not in this case. Always when there's on top written in a question, select all that apply. This does not happen, okay? Thank you. Question 13. How often do you use the following Sea Pines restaurant and shopping amenities? Not that often, but you do use them a couple of times a month. That's mostly for the, especially for the top 8 items, it's a couple of times a month. Surprising or interesting for me was here that the Sea Pines Country Club, we talked about it earlier, is the highest who is chosen never, with about 60%, but it's also the highest percentage, which is actually, if you use it several times a week. So you see that here on the bottom with 12.3%. So that's about 320 people who use it more than once a week. Okay, so those are the interesting things we find when we go through the data. So this is a question which has been asked the first time. We would like to have a clearer picture of the needs within our community related to mobility challenges. Do you, someone who visits or someone who has stays in your Sea Pines home, have any mobility challenges? This is something which came up to CSA in the beginning of this year, and they asked us to actually throw it into the survey to see how big of an issue it actually is. And with a response of 13.3% has said, yes, we do have challenges. Now CSA knows, okay, we have to address certain issues. The follow-up question, if you answered yes to these questions, you saw the follow-up questions. If you said no, you didn't see this. The follow-up questions was, what are the details? Please provide us details. What I present here is just a word count. This is not an explanation of anything. It's just how often specific words were mentioned. It is the task of it's the task of CSA to go into the nitty-gritty, into the fine print, into the individual comments. But this box helps them to see, okay, parking with 34 times mentioned, there is an issue with parking. Where are those issues? What can we do to address those issues? Okay, that's how these word percentages are explained. We're going to have a few more further down the line. Question 16. Please describe your awareness of each of the following CSA maintenance services. Now we talk about specific services CSA is providing. We start with maintenance, we continue with service and security, and the other one, security. And the third one is communication. Those three specifics, we ask you a couple of questions. This one is always the same for all three of those, is how aware are you? Have you used them in the past? Or are you not at all aware about this? Okay, so I'm aware of the service, it's available, and I have used it. I have not used this service, but I am aware of it, aware it is available. I was not aware the service is available. So especially the last box is then where it starts to be interesting for the communications department in CSA. Because why are people not aware that there's a drain clean out, you may ask, okay? So because for residents, the drain clean out is available, so what can we do to make sure that all you guys know that CSA Services will take care of this for you if you ask for it? Okay, so that's just for internal, it's work for the subcommittees, let's call it like this. Then we ask about the frequency of those same services. How often have you used them? How frequently are you using them? And the last one is how satisfied you were with those services provided. So here, when you see now, or when you look now at question 18, and you look at the top two box, the top two box is not that high. It's not a 90% rating. It's just a 54.4 rating. However, if you look at the weighted average, the rating was actually quite satisfactory. So if you know it exists, and if you did not apply not applicable to this question, but you gave your opinion about your satisfaction, you can see in the weighted average that people are with a 4.18 very happy with the services provided, because remember, it's a scale from 1 to 5, and 4.18 is you are quite happy with those services provided. All right, continuing, this is, again, a word count where it's about how can we improve those services. This is, again, those comments end up in the subcommittees. The subcommittees of CSA will address those issues and try to accommodate as best as possible. And now we get into the safety and security services with exactly the same questions we saw earlier. CPR, automated external defibrillator. Thank goodness just 2% used them so far. However, more people should be aware of this, and it's just 60% indicated they are not aware that these things are around. So again, one of the tasks of the subcommittee. How often have you used them? It's the same thing. And how satisfied were you with those services provided? Wildlife management with 3.9 weighted average is very high, so you're very happy with those services provided. And the word count, how often have specific things been mentioned? So enforcement, security, property, those have been wildlife, those words have been mentioned so and so often, but the content can't be displayed in this. This is really where you have to then, or the subcommittees go into the fine print. All right, roadside parking. Roadside parking is currently permitted in residential areas unless otherwise prohibited by signs or pavement marking. This current policy is an update from the prior policy, which prohibited parking on the roadways throughout all Sea Pines residential areas. Please provide your preference from the options below. I would prefer to keep the current policy as is, permitted street parking unless marked prohibited, indicated with 50.8%. So you're happy how it is. And 40.3%, or the majority, I'm sorry, the majority is happy how it is. 40.3% indicated they would like to go back to the previous policy. And yes, thank you. The next one is, while staying in Sea Pines or traveling to from Sea Pines, how important is it to have the following modes of transportation available to you and your family or guests? We ask about rideshares like Uber and Lyft. We ask about the Sea Pines trolley, and we ask about cabs. And all of them are quite close together, and their top two boxes between 48.9 and 54%, as well in their weighted averages between 3.36 and 3.24. So the trolley is doing well with 3.3 and a weighted average. Perfect. So that's the follow-up question about the trolley. When the Sea Pines trolley is operating, how often do you and your family or guest use this service? Again, it's a frequency question, and the majority is using it a couple of times a year with 40.5%, where 70 people indicated they use it several times a week or daily. The majority is never. I'm sorry, here. With a 0.4% difference. Yes, so you're right. It's never with 1,000 people and 1,055 people indicated they use it never. But again, the closely followed by a couple of times a year. So the question is then how you use or utilize the trolley, if you utilize it. And it's mainly utilized for transportation to Sea Pines events. Or just to enjoy the trolley ride. That's also quite interesting, with 718 people just enjoy to ride the trolley. Amazing. I find this quite charming. All right. So, thank you. The next one, the following types, question 28. The following types of vehicles below are currently prohibited in Sea Pines. Please indicate if these vehicles should continue to be prohibited. If you would like to see any of these types of vehicles allowed in the future, please indicate who should have permission to use them inside the Sea Pines community. The majority would like to continue to prohibit all the types of vehicles below, and we talk about motorized or electronic bikes. We ask about golf carts, mopeds, segways, motorcycles, or others. And then the second table is basically depicting of those who do agree to allow those modes of transportation, who should be able to use them, just residents or visitors too. All right, so that's that. Question 29. Would you use a dispatched transportation service provided by Sea Pines CSA that would deliver you within a defined service area? Yes, 49.2%, no, 50.8%. So that's a very close call. Should this type of transportation be available, what areas would you like to be included in the service area? That was a follow-up question. Locations within Sea Pines, 53.1%. Locations within immediate area of Sea Pines, 50.1%, and locations throughout Hilton Head, 45.6%. All of them are quite close together who actually do think this is a good idea. And now we come into the communications part. That's the last one. How often do we use the following Sea Pines CSA communication channels to get news and information about Sea Pines community? And we have the emails from CSA who are on the top of the list with 3.74. That's the most frequently used. And we have then the newsletter and print mailings, as well as communications website a couple of times a month. That's what stands out, with 32.8% a couple of times a month for the newsletter and 28.3% for the website. Then we ask, what kind of information would you be interested in receiving through Sea Pines CSA communications? And there's on top of the list, of course, security notices, community events with 90.7%, maintenance updates with 89.3%, weather updates with about 57%, as well as social news with 54%. In Sea Pines, this is now again communication specific, because here our CSA is attempting to measure success of how well are things doing and when they change things. In April of 2017, Sea Pines CSA launched a phase 1 of our community website, seapinesliving.com. Please address the following questions below related to the website. What are your main reasons for visiting the Sea Pines CSA website? Select all that apply. This is again a reference of how successful they are, what should be out there, what is the need of the community, what should we present more, or should CSA present more. And access to community event information like calendar is requested from 71.3%, I'm sorry. And then we ask, how do you usually access those websites? usually through, if it's your desktop, your mobile phone, your tablet, or other devices. And that again is important for the designers for the homepage, etc. And then we ask about your satisfaction about the website CPINE's Living. And overall, you're on the weighted average with 3.8, which is on a 5-point scale. Quite happy with the you're quite satisfied overall with this with the cpinesliving.com homepage. We ask you again about additional feedback, and this is the word count. Email meetings, board, community came up, and again, there needs to be, you need to go, the CSA needs to go, the communication subcommittee needs to go into the details what's precisely meant there. Question 37. CPINE CSA is exploring the option of a community directory in which CSA residents, property owners could elect to opt in to share their personal information with other owners. If implemented, would you opt in to share your personal information, like email addresses, phone number, or CPINE's property address with other CPINE's property owners? Yes were indicated by 1,414 people, which translates to 54.7%. No were responded to. No responded to 45.3%. Sorry. Again, the follow-up question was just seen for those who answered yes. The ones who answered no did not see this question. If yes, what information would you be willing to share? Select all that apply. And here we ask about email address, property address, and phone numbers. And 60%, roughly 60% said they would share all of the above. Now, more a generic question: would you like CPINE CSA to host more community events or fewer? And 1/4 decided for less. 3/4 would like to have more community events hosted by CPINE CSA. Here is just about, it's kind of popularity contest. Which ones did you attend in the past? And it's about the Independence Day celebration, which was visited by most of the residents in this community, with 49% indicating they went. CPINE CSA is exploring the possibility of developing a new owner orientation program. As a new owner, would you have found such a program helpful? Yes, indicated 82%. So I guess that's going to happen in the in the future with results like this. The next question we ask for specific topics. What topics would have been helpful to you to be mentioned? And CSA services generically, owners, covenants, ARBs, rental and renters questions, etc. Again, these will be addressed in the specific subcommittees. Now you guys had a lot of chance to complain about specifics, but it's the nitty-gritty, it's about the fine print. Now we wanted to know about your overall satisfaction about CPINE. How good of a job are they doing? This is the overall satisfaction, and it's very important for CPINE CS because they know their challenges, they know their issues which have to be addressed. However, even though there's a lot to complain about, how well are we doing in the end of the day, CSA in this case? And the top two box with 75.3% is actually it's a very good result, so people are overall very satisfied or satisfied. And then there was a lot of suggestions of what could be improved. Again, those comments are on poor Amanda's desk. And then the follow-up question was, how often do you use the following pools? My own pool, regime pools, Harbour Town, resort pool, etc. And it's a frequency question again, and again, it's about allocating resources, etc., etc. How aware are you that all residential property owners of CPINEs have access to Harbour Town Resort Pool and the South Beach Pool? Most of you are aware that this is free access for owners and owners and guests. Do you visit the existing CSA Community Center? I guess all of you said yes at this point, with 60% indicating yes and about 40% no. And we asked, we wanted to know for what reasons did you actually visit the community center? And it's usually meetings or artists of CPINE's reception, C-Pines neighborhood POA meetings, etc., etc. That's just the percentages listed there. Again, it's a select all that apply. Question 49, bear with me, we have 11 to go. Does the C-Pines residential community need a new community center or recreational complex? The majority said no to this question with 72%, and 28% indicated yes, there's a need for the center. If not, please tell us why there's no need for the center. And these are the responses. The amenity choices inside C-Pines are sufficient with 61.4%. About 60%, I think it's not a good financial investment. I would not use it with 37.4%, and others. This is it's a lot to take in, I'm aware. What amenities might you and your family use if a new community center or recreational complex were to be developed in C-Pines? This is, again, how often would you use it? I did not split it in half because I did not want to create a scaling here, because this is all which was mentioned in the question. If you have that on the top of the second page, you may think that's the top of the actual question. That's not what it is. That's why this big slide. However, it is going to be online, the report. You will be able to look into the fine print there for you. However, the fitness center is the most popular in usage. A potential coffee shop, swimming pools, indoor, etc. are mentioned on this list and under the top 3. We asked also who should have access to these amenity facilities, and owners with 97%, of course, family of owners 87%, but renters of C-Pines just with 21%, long-term or short-term renters. What groups, activities, or clubs might you participate in if offered in the C-Pines? And that's what came out. It was again an open box. It's a word count here. And pickleball, there's a huge request for pickleball with about 40%. And then there's just clubs mentioned. That's because it's a word count. I don't know if it was chess clubs, cooking clubs, etc. So that's where we have to go into the fine print again. Would you support C-Pine CSA taking action to negotiate a significant savings to your telecommunications costs? Yes, with 64%, no with 3%, and a majority, sorry, not a majority, but the second biggest group with 33% would need to know more before deciding to answer this question. Which doesn't mean that they're convinced. It also doesn't mean that they're not convinced. Again, this is a barometer for CSA and also the resort to see how well are they doing, because if you're likely to recommend this community to your colleagues, they are doing something wrong in the end. And with the top 2 box of extremely likely or likely that you recommend this community to your colleagues of 90%, this is quite a successful rate, or 4.4 weighted average. The follow-up questions was if you would have to have the choice to choose again or to move again to C-Pines. 85% said yes, it's likely or extremely likely, with about 219 people, or 8.3% neutral to this question. This is rather unusual for us as scientists, especially as social scientists. Usually the balance is 60-40 for the women. Here the men are quite vocal, which is very nice for us because it's a 50-50 split. The age categories are also quite typical for a community like this. So we have the majority of between 65 and 75 years old with 36.4%, and between 55 and 64 with 31.6%. What are you actually doing? Full-time employed is 25.4%, and retired is about 52% for this community. This question is the last question, and there we ask if you would be interested in further communication to specific topics, and that's where we CSA actually did provide email addresses, because each of those topics has an email address connected to it. So we provided those 565 email addresses. Oh, no, this ones we didn't provide, but we did provide the future amenities, 1,450 email addresses. We did give this list to SEPA and CSA to be able to contact or to reach out to you, because you did indicate that you are interested in being reached out to for future amenities. Okay, so that actually concludes the presenting of the results, and I hand it back to Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Anton. We appreciate that thorough report from you. I'd like to take a moment to thank University of South Carolina Beaufort, Anton Abraham, and John Salazar. We worked with them quite closely on this. Several meetings. I would venture to say upwards of at least 20 hours worth of work just went into the meetings with them alone to get to this point. As you can see from the questions that Anton has just covered, our committees, our staff, the CSA board had a number of different questions that we needed feedback from our property owners on. I'd like to also thank the committee and the boards for working with us, with staff, to get those questions in front of the community so we could get that feedback. I'd like to thank Jean McElroy, my communications coordinator, and David Henderson, Director of Special Projects and Operations, and Brett Martin, CSA President, for really working together to get this survey in front of you guys so we could get that feedback from you. Obviously, my thanks goes to the property owners for giving the feedback. This is a very well, from what Anton and John have given me, confirmation of a great return rate for feedback and for collection of that feedback. So we are just very pleased to have that high return rate. Your feedback is vital as we continue to plan for the community. Again, like I mentioned, I will be posting this presentation. It is being captured via webinar and being filmed live. And then what we will be doing is presenting those results that Anton has just confirmed to you on our website. So that will be presented as a package together. Like I mentioned earlier, I encourage you to take the time to review the survey along with the video presentation and contact CSA at info@csacpines.com if you have any further questions. Thank you so much. At this time, that ends the meeting. Have a great day. Thank you.